Okay, so now we're going to talk about beginner eighth note rhythms. On this particular page, you'll see 10 of them. I don't usually go over number one for several reasons, which I won't talk about here. So I normally start out with number two. All of these rhythms use eighth notes on the hi-hat or the ride, and I will go back and forth as I play these. And then the snares are typically on 2 and 4, and the bass drums are the notes that move around a lot. So number two is known as the simple beat or the money beat because a lot of songs can be played using this rhythm. I just typically call it the simple beat. So number two, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 So I play two measures on each cymbal, two measures on the hi-hat, two measures on the ride. I played it nice and slow, and I played it very evenly. And if you noticed, obviously I counted while I played them. That's to help you learn an eighth note count and kind of count the measures as you go through. When we play these exercises, I like to think of them in phrases. So a phrase is like a group. So in this case, we just say, all right, I'm going to play a 2-measure phrase on the hi-hat and then a 2-measure phrase on the ride cymbal. And that's what I just did. It's not the most common phrase to play, but it's a good way to get started because you move quickly between the hi-hat and the ride, and I want you getting used to doing that. A more common phrase to use is a 4-measure phrase where you play 4 measures on the hi-hat and then 4 measures on the ride. And then an even more common phrase to use is an 8-measure phrase. 8 measures on the hi-hat and 8 measures on the ride. All right, I'm going to play a 4-measure phrase very fast, and I'm going to count the measures as I go. That was 4 measures of beginner rhythm exercise number 2 on the hi-hat. Whatever phrase you decide to play, whether it's a 2-measure phrase, a 4-measure phrase, or an 8-measure phrase, I want you switching off between cymbals. So 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, like that. And it's a good idea to count the measures as you go. Let's talk about counting for a little bit. The way I just counted those couple of phrases was using eighth notes. Now there's several ways to count. You can count the quarter note inside of the eighth note, because what that means is the quarter note, which is the 1, 2, 3, and 4, is inside of the eighth note 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You feel the quarter inside of the eighth note pattern. So one way we can count it is in quarters, but we'll still be playing eighth notes. So we would do it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a simpler way to count because you're not counting as much. Eighth notes are very busy when you count them, and quarter notes kind of fly by pretty quickly. Another way to count is what I call just counting the tops. So you would count just the first number in each measure. So that sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how you count the 4 measures using just the tops. That's a very simple way, and the way that I count, because you don't have to speak all those other words, all those other notes, the 1 and 2 and 3 and, or all the other quarters. You just count the tops of every measure. So just the numbers. And it's a quick way to get through a phrase. And I would recommend you build up to counting tops as you play the longer phrases, such as the 8-measure phrases. And then, of course, we can go down this page and play all the other rhythms that are here. I'm going to play them using eighth notes or counting eighth notes, and I will go down and play them as two measure phrases. Number 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Number 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Number 5. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. If you notice, I'm stopping on beat 1 of the next measure each time. It's a good idea to do that, to give the phrase a final note. All right. Number 6 is next. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Number 7. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Number 8. Number 9. 1 and 2 and 4 Number 10. 1 and 2 and 4 Okay, that's the whole page. Now you may want to play these a little slower if you've never played some of these before, and because some of the ones on the lower part of the page, the back half of the page, are a little more difficult. One of the reasons they become more difficult is they become more busy, like number 10 is a very busy pattern, number 6 is a very busy pattern, but other ones like number 8 and number 5 can be a little challenging because of the rests, the gaps between the notes, and we just do that to create the different colored patterns. Rest, anytime you put a rest in there, it's going to create a different color. So if you notice, the rests are in some of the measures and not in others, and that was done purposely just to show you that rhythms can be written using rests or without. There's several ways to write any one particular pattern and get the same output, the same rhythm when you play it. So I just used a couple of different methods when I wrote this page. Again, I want you playing this page very slowly at first, concentrating on playing very evenly, switching off your phrases, whether they're 2-measure phrases, 4-measure phrases, or 8-measure phrases, between your hi-hat and ride, and just focus on playing everything very evenly. I can't say that enough. All right, that'll do it for this page.